The light heavyweight division is the single most cursed division in the UFC. Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka is an insane fight that just got announced for UFC 295 and is probably my most anticipated fight of the year and will be an extremely violent event for sure. I mean, this is the closest thing to actual Mortal Kombat. But most importantly, the light heavyweight division in the UFC is finally going to be able to crown a champion after being vacant for nearly 3 months and having the longest drought of a championship fight, with the division not having a fight for the belt since January of this year when Jamal Hill fought and defeated Glover Teixeira for the belt. This division, despite having killers and making for very fun fights, has had a tumultuous, unlucky, and again, very cursed history that I haven't seen out of any other division in the UFC. So today we're going to map out a timeline of the 205-pound division and see why time and time and again, the champs in this division can't seem to hold on to the belt. But before we begin, a little word from Raycon. Guys, let's talk about these earbuds. My friends at Raycon sent me a pair of earbuds over the weekend and I've been loving them ever since. As soon as I got them out of the box, I was actually blown away at how easy it was to set them up and pair them to my phone and start listening. Obviously, the premium audio, the noise isolation, and the comfortable design are all fantastic, but I was no joke genuinely surprised at how easy it was to pair on my phone and start listening right out the box. And because of the 32 hours of battery life, ever since I've started using them, I haven't had to charge them since. I've been using these earbuds mostly while working out and shadowboxing, and not only are they comfortable for long periods of time, but they don't fall out of your ear, and trust me, I've been slipping, rolling, throwing flying knees, and they still comfortably stay in my ear. And you can get all of this at half the price of other premium brands. Raycon's anniversary sale is coming up, and this year Raycon is turning 6. In those 6 years, Raycon has also expanded to Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech, so there's a lot to celebrate. And to thank everyone who's shown them support, Raycon is offering 20% off everything on their site, with select products being 40% off. So I mean, if I were you, this would be the best time to get these high quality earbuds with an abundance of great features at an inexpensive price point. So again, let's celebrate Raycon turning 6 with their biggest sale of the year going on now. Hurry now to buyraycon.com/TJLfights and use code birthday to get 20 to 40% off site-wide, or you can click the link in the description below. Thanks again, Raycon. Let's go back to a time of peace and order. And when the two words peace and order come around, I'm obviously talking about Jon Jones. The last time this division had any order was when Jon Jones had the belt and had his last championship reign at 205. And we all know Jon has had a couple championship reigns because of a couple reasons we really won't get into in this video, but this last championship reign came from him beating Alexander Gustafsson for the second time for the vacant title after DC vacated it, moving up and getting the heavyweight strap. And from here, Jon Jones didn't really have the most exciting defenses. He defended against Anthony Smith and still won despite getting a point deduction for an illegal knee. He won a close split decision against Thiago Santos that made us question whether or not Jon was still on top of his game. And finally, we had a very controversial fight against Dominic Reyes where he arguably lost and should have been dethroned. But after those defenses, he would vacate the belt, claiming his heavyweight goals would take a little time. And it took a little bit of time. And this move felt like the Roman Empire falling and leading to the Dark Ages. After a long reign of domination, the empire fell and everything went into disarray. So first, let's start off with the Jan Blachowicz era. Jan actually for a little bit looked like the true successor to the throne, and I honestly thought he was going to hold it for quite some time. His title reign would begin with an amazing fight and performance over Dominic Reyes. Jan opened up this fight with nasty kicks to Dominic's body and would continue to break down Reyes until he literally did one of those fighting game stunners with the left hook and eventually finished Reyes and attained the belt. And unfortunately for Dominic Reyes, a guy that rightfully should have had the belt in his hands, went down a violent losing streak, and I don't think we'll ever see him return to that championship level. Anyways, Jan Blachowicz would make his first title defense against a moving up Israel Adesanya, and despite being a sizable underdog, Jan dominated Izzy, especially on the ground, showing he had the clear strength advantage and even kept up and won most of the exchanges on the feet. After this defense, Jan would go on to face a real light heavyweight in veteran Glover Teixeira, and this is where the real chaos would begin. Glover Teixeira was a sizable underdog here too, given the fact that he was 42 fucking years old at the time of fighting Jan. Everyone was under the assumption that Glover was well past his prime and was just giving it one last shot Maybe a nice walk off to the sunset after an amazing career, but this was anything but. Glover came out a dog in this fight immediately and aggressively looking for that takedown early in the first, and he got it. From here, he controlled Yan from the top and delivered good ground and pound, which secured him that first round. In the next round, the two stayed on the feet in the beginning, and despite Yan being the better striker on paper, Glover was actually getting the better of these exchanges and even rocked Yan with the left hook midway through this round. Then Glover would mix it up again with the takedown and somehow quickly got Yan's back, flattened him out, and choked out Jan Blachowicz for the belt. Glover Teixeira became the oldest UFC champion at 42 years old and dominated a dangerous Jan Blachowicz and got the finish too on top of that. But unfortunately for Glover, the happiness was short-lived when he had to face another dangerous opponent right after for his first title defense. Yuri versus Glover, I think, best represents the light heavyweight division as a whole. A violent but fun but also chaotic fight all rolled up into one. Through the first 4 rounds, Yuri utilized his youth, speed, and unorthodox striking, dominating the fight when they stood up, and when Glover took the fight to the ground, he dominated that part of the fight with vicious ground and pound. And in these beginning 4 rounds, there were moments where either guy could have easily been finished. And then we get to, my opinion, one of the greatest rounds of all time. The 5th round starts out with Glover walking forward and catching Yuri perfect with a right hand that rocked him to the point where it looked like it was going to finally end. But in the most jarring of moments, Glover decides to go for the guillotine on a hurt opponent, pulled guard, and took the fight to the ground. This probably cost Glover the fight, as this gave Yuri time to recover and avoid being finished. Yuri would bring the fight back up, though Glover would continue to rain down big punches and bring the fight back to the ground. But here, Yuri would find his chance to kick off the cage, get on top, and eventually get Glover's back and end the fight with a rear naked choke nearly at the buzzer. I mean, how could you not like this fight? Yuri, in only 3 fights in the UFC, became champion, and surely this was the champ to reign, right? But unfortunately, given the luck of this division, ahead of the rematch against Glover Teixeira and Yuri's first title defense, Yuri would injure his right shoulder while wrestling in practice, and this would become the worst shoulder injury the doctors have ever seen, according to Dana. This tragic injury would lead to Yuri vacating the belt, citing that he didn't want to hold up the division. And because Glover wanted to fight Yuri and Yuri only, this would set up a title fight for the vacant belt between former champion Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev. And I feel like this fight doesn't really get talked about a lot, but I appreciated it mostly because this was the most violent display of leg kicks I've ever seen outside of Jose Aldo versus Uriah Faber. Jan's game plan must have been to break Magomed's legs because he was constantly throwing leg kicks with all his might. It actually got to the point where Magomed visibly grimaced in pain and started hobbling on one leg. But despite taking such a beating to his legs, Magomed smartly took this fight to the ground and dominated the fight there. So much so that he got the 10-8 in the last round on 2 judges' scorecards because of his dominant ground control, which resulted in a split draw. An extremely disappointing end to this fight, and the division still had no champ and the belt remained vacant. This would set up in the next month a fight between Jamal Hill, the 7th ranked contender, against Glover Teixeira, the former champ. And this was a horrible, horrible beating. It was personally one of the hardest fights to watch just because I really like Glover Teixeira, but in this fight, it really showed his age as he just got beat up from everywhere in this fight. Though I guess credit to Glover Teixeira for sticking in there and not being finished, but this would eventually lead to his rightful retirement and lead to Jamal Hill getting the belt. This would also lead to an after credits type scene by Yuri Prochazka as he called out Jamal Hill on his social media saying that he was going to come back, and I think you've seen this video by now.
Congratulations. I'm coming. I'm coming!
And like we've seen before, whenever something good happens in this division or something is anticipated, like Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill, something bad is bound to happen. Jamal Hill would pull a page out of Yuri Prochazka's book and announce that he had an Achilles injury so bad that he had to vacate the belt. Mind you, in the last 3 years, we've seen 3 different champions vacate the belt. So if there is a cursed division in the UFC, it's the light heavyweight division. Though fortunately, Alex Pereira, after losing to Israel Adesanya, would move up to 205 and make the division a little more interesting by defeating Jan Blachowicz, the former champion, and set up an amazing fight against Yuri Prochazka to finally decide who is the champion at 205. I hope I don't jinx it, but I'm really crossing my fingers here that there are no draws, no injuries, or any freak accidents that may stop the 205 division from getting someone with the belt. Anyways, what do you guys think about the light heavyweight division given its very unfortunate, unlucky circumstances? I think it has the potential for being one of the most fun divisions in the UFC, given that the guys here are big enough to hit hard, but they're also small enough to be fast and quick and elongate fights, unlike the heavyweight division. But anyways, again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.